Electrical safety is paramount in any electrical installation or maintenance work. A critical aspect of ensuring this safety is adhering to the National Electrical Code, specifically regarding working clearances around electrical equipment. The question often arises, where exactly do we measure this working clearance from? The correct answer is that the space being measured for working clearance goes from the equipment being worked on, not from the wall. Understanding this distinction is essential for code compliance and worker safety. Let's delve into the details of NEC Section 110.26, which addresses the space about electrical equipment. This section outlines the requirements for working space around electrical equipment operating at 600 volts, nominal or less. These requirements are in place to provide sufficient space for electricians and other qualified personnel to safely access, inspect, maintain, and operate electrical equipment. Firstly, we need to define what constitutes working space. Working space, as defined by the NEC, is the area around electrical equipment that must be kept clear of obstructions to allow safe access for personnel. This space extends in 3 dimensions: height, width, and depth. It's crucial to maintain this space to minimize the risk of electrical shock, arc flash, and other hazards. Secondly, let's talk about the depth of the working space, which is the distance measured from the front of the electrical equipment. Table 110.26. A1 specifies the minimum depth of the working space based on the voltage to ground and the condition of the space opposite the equipment. The conditions are generally categorized as follows: Condition 1, where there is an exposed live part on one side and grounded parts or grounded masonry on the other side. Condition 2, where there are exposed live parts on both sides, and Condition 3, where there are exposed live parts on one side and insulated surfaces on the other side. The required depth increases with voltage and the severity of the condition. For example, for equipment operating at 151 to 600 volts with Condition 1, the minimum required depth is 3 feet. For Condition 2, it increases to 4 feet. And for Condition 3, it is also 3 feet. It is imperative to consult Table 110.26. A1 in the current edition of the NEC to determine the correct working space depth for the specific equipment and installation conditions. Thirdly, we address the width of the working space. NEC Section 110.26. A2 states that the width of the working space in front of electrical equipment shall be the width of the equipment, or 30 inches, whichever is greater. This ensures that there is adequate lateral space for personnel to move and work comfortably. It's important to note that the working space must be sufficient to allow at least a 90-degree opening of doors or hinge panels. Fourthly, the height of the working space is also critical. NEC Section 110.26. A3 requires that the working space shall be clear and extend from the grade, floor, or platform to a height of 6 and 1/2 feet, or the height of the equipment, whichever is greater. This ensures that there is sufficient headroom for personnel to stand and work without obstruction. Fifthly, illumination is another important consideration. NEC Section 110.26. E requires that sufficient illumination be provided in working spaces around electrical equipment. Adequate lighting is essential for personnel to see clearly and perform their tasks safely. The specific level of illumination required may vary depending on the type of equipment and the nature of the work being performed. Sixthly, we cover the access and entrance to working space. NEC Section 110.26. C specifies requirements for access and entrance to working space. It states that at least one entrance of sufficient area shall be provided to give access to the working space about electrical equipment. For equipment rated 1200 amps or more and over 6 feet wide, there shall be an entrance at each end of the working space. Seventhly, the NEC addresses the issue of dedicated equipment space. NEC Section 110.26. E requires that the space above and below electrical equipment be dedicated to the electrical installation. This means that foreign equipment, such as piping, ducts, or other non-electrical equipment, shall not be located in this space. The purpose of this requirement is to prevent damage to the electrical equipment and to ensure that it can be accessed and maintained safely. Eighthly, we address the doors or hinge panels. As noted earlier, The working space must be arranged so that doors or hinged panels can be opened at least 90 degrees. This is essential for providing adequate access to the equipment for maintenance and repair. Ninthly, let's address the question of measurement. It is crucial to understand that the working space is measured from the front of the electrical equipment, not from the wall or any other obstruction behind the equipment. This means that the depth of the working space is determined by the distance from the front of the equipment to the nearest obstruction, such as a wall or another piece of equipment. If there is an obstruction within the required working space, it must be removed or relocated to comply with the NEC. Tenthly, it is important to note that the NEC provides minimum requirements for working space. In some cases, it may be necessary to provide additional working space beyond the minimum requirements to ensure safe and efficient operation and maintenance of electrical equipment. Factors to consider when determining the appropriate working space include the size and complexity of the equipment, the frequency of maintenance, and the skill level of the personnel performing the work. 11thly, NEC Section 110.26 applies to a wide range of electrical equipment, including switchboards, panel boards, motor control centers, and other similar equipment. It is essential to consult the specific requirements of NEC Section 110.26 for each type of equipment to ensure compliance. 12thly, the working space requirements of NEC Section 110.26 are intended to protect personnel from electrical shock, arc flash, and other hazards. By providing adequate working space, personnel can safely access and work on electrical equipment without coming into contact with energized parts. 13thly, the NEC is a dynamic document that is updated on a regular basis. It is important to stay up to date with the latest edition of the NEC to ensure compliance with the current requirements. Changes to the NEC can affect the working space requirements, so it is essential to review the code carefully and consult with qualified electrical professionals. 14thly, in addition to the NEC, other codes and standards may also apply to working space around electrical equipment. For example, OSHA regulations may specify additional requirements for working space in certain industries or applications. It is important to be aware of all applicable codes and standards and to comply with the most stringent requirements. 15thly, the working space requirements of NEC Section 110.26 are not intended to be a substitute for proper training and safe work practices. Personnel working on or around electrical equipment must be properly trained and qualified to perform their tasks safely. They must also follow safe work practices, such as wearing appropriate personal protective equipment, energizing equipment before working on it, and using insulated tools. 16thly, the working space requirements of NEC Section 110.26 are not always easy to interpret and apply. In some cases, it may be necessary to consult with a qualified electrical engineer or inspector to determine the correct working space requirements for a specific installation. It is always better to err on the side of caution and provide more working space than is required to ensure safety. 17thly, regular inspections of working spaces around electrical equipment are essential to ensure that they are maintained in compliance with the NEC. During inspections, look for obstructions, such as storage boxes, equipment, or debris that may be blocking access to the equipment. Also, check for adequate lighting and clear access to the working space. 18thly, when planning a new electrical installation or modifying an existing one, it is important to consider the working space requirements of NEC Section 110.26 early in the design process. This will help to ensure that the equipment can be installed in a safe and compliant manner. It is also important to coordinate with other trades, such as mechanical and plumbing, to avoid conflicts with the working space requirements. 19thly, the working space requirements of NEC Section 110.26 are not just a matter of code compliance. They are also a matter of good engineering practice. By providing adequate working space, you can help to ensure that electrical equipment can be installed, operated, and maintained safely and efficiently. 20thly, in summary, the working space requirements of NEC Section 110.26 are essential for protecting personnel from electrical hazards. These requirements specify the minimum depth, width, and height of the working space around electrical equipment. The working space must be clear of obstructions and provide adequate access for personnel to safely access, inspect, maintain, and operate the equipment. It is important to consult the NEC and other applicable codes and standards to determine the correct working space requirements for a specific installation. 21st, remember that the measurement is from the equipment outward, not from the wall inward. So, consider the front plane of the electrical panel or switchgear as your starting point for measuring the required depth of working space. 22nd, working clearances are not just lines on a drawing, they are lifelines for electricians and maintenance personnel. Proper adherence to these regulations ensures that individuals can perform their duties safely and efficiently, minimizing the risk of accidents and injuries. 23rd, while understanding the code is important, it's equally crucial to apply it practically. This means visualizing the working space in real-world scenarios and ensuring that there is sufficient room for maneuverability, especially when dealing with large or complex equipment. 24th, the working space also needs to be maintained over time. Regular inspections should be conducted to ensure that nothing has been placed in the working space that could impede access to the equipment. This is especially important in areas where storage space is limited. 25th, the intent of NEC Section 110.26 is to provide a safe working environment for qualified electrical personnel. The specific requirements for working space are based on the voltage of the equipment, the type of equipment, and the configuration of the installation. It's not simply about following the numbers in the table, but understanding the underlying principles of safety and accessibility. 26th, if you're ever unsure about the correct working space requirements for a particular installation, it's always best to consult with a qualified electrical inspector or engineer. They can help you interpret the code and ensure that your installation is safe and compliant. 27th, it is extremely important to prioritize safety and always measure working clearances from the equipment being worked on to the furthest obstruction. Following these guidelines ensures compliance with the NEC and contributes to a safer working environment for electrical professionals.